Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm the Fantasy Football Strategist, and after watching today's video, you're going to know 5 wide receivers that are going to win you fantasy championships in 2024. Please remember to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My first wide receiver is Terry McLaurin, wide receiver for the Washington Commanders. He's 28 years old, so just a little bit past the peak production age for wide receivers, which is 26, by the way. But he still has years of valuable playing time left. And man, you want to talk about a quarterback upgrade? This guy has dealt with horrific quarterback play throughout his career. Jacoby Brissett this past year is one of the best quarterbacks he's played with. Think about that. He's finished anywhere from wide receiver 20 through 29 throughout most of his career, along with a wide receiver 14 season 2 years ago. But once again, remember that the quarterback play has been terrible. Jayden Daniels coming into town is going to be such a big boost for him. Think of what Jayden Daniels did for Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas Jr. this past year. Looking at statistics from this past year, the Commanders were the most pass-happy team in the entire league. It's important to contextualize why. Their defense is terrible. Guess what? Their defense is still terrible. They are going to have to throw the ball whether they want to or not. They're going to be one of those teams that is going to have to remain among the top passing teams this next year. And they know that. That's why they signed Austin Ekeler. As the dominant wide receiver 1 for this team, their second best receiver is Jahan Dotson, he's not overrated now, but boy, after his 7-touchdown rookie season, his value was incredibly inflated. Terry McLaurin is the wide receiver for the Commanders in which you really want. Looking at where Terry McLaurin is going, he's going 68th overall, or the 608, as the wide receiver 33. What? His worst finish was the wide receiver 29 as a rookie, with terrible quarterback play. He has better quarterback play, it's definitely looking like this year. He's still the alpha wide receiver 1, who's going to be their ex-wide receiver, asked to beat man press coverage. He's going to receive a dominant target share. His only competition is Jahan Dotson, who only received hype because he had 7 touchdowns in his rookie year, which is just a fluke. He's really just about the only credible target there, so he's going to be fed early and often in the passing game. Their defense is atrocious. They're going to have to pass. Really, this is a fantastic situation for him and his fantasy points. Looking at his metrics, he ran a 4.35 40-yard dash with a 114.6 speed score. That is really good stuff, and he has not lost a step yet. Looking at his stats this past year, he finished 18th in the NFL with 79 receptions, 27th in the NFL with 1,002 receiving yards, and 9th in unrealized air yards with 848. Think about that. He was top 10 in unrealized air yards. What that means is that's yards that he theoretically could have had if he was either A, able to catch the pass, or B, it was an actual catchable pass. So he could have finished with over 1,800 yards if everything went his way. And while that's not always going to happen, in fact, it's almost never going to happen where just about every air yard you get, you actually catch. But what it means is there's massive room for growth here. Draft him often at his ADP of the 608. He's never finished worse than wide receiver 29, and he's being drafted as the wide receiver 33. Take advantage of that. He is absolutely going to finish way higher than wide receiver 25 this year. I'd project reasonably around wide receiver 20. My second wide receiver is Hollywood Brown of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's still only 27 years old, so 1 year past the peak production curve for the wide receiver position. Definitely not that advanced in age. He still has every bit of the speed he came into the NFL with, and is going to be an absolute monster with Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, is going to be by far the best quarterback he has ever played with. No offense to Lamar Jackson, I'm a Ravens fan, or Kyler Murray. It's just a fact. While his yearly finishes haven't been quite as good the past 2 years, that is because he dealt with injuries. But if he stays healthy in this Chiefs offense, he has the potential to be a stud for you and help you win your fantasy championships. When we consider where he fits into this offense, he's going to play a lot of X and Z, so he's going to be asked to beat man press coverage, but he's also going to get free looks while in the Z position without press coverage. When we look at the other players around him, Travis Kelce is going to be 35 this year. He has absolutely lost a step and is declining, even if it's not rapidly. Then you got to think Rashee Rice, there's a good chance he's suspended. That's going to lead to a lot of open targets if that happens. Then his other competition, in terms of speed at least, is a first-round rookie. And while Xavier Worthy is a pretty good wide receiver, thinking that a rookie wide receiver is going to overtake Hollywood Brown that really only went in the first round because of his track speed, even though he is a good prospect, really he should be their wide receiver 1. Also, on a per-game basis, he's actually a really good wide receiver in terms of fantasy points per game. As I said earlier, his total finishes haven't been that great due to injury the past 2 years, but his per-game stats are actually really good. 3 years ago, he finished as the wide receiver 21 in fantasy points per game, and 2 years ago, he finished as the wide receiver 27. This past season, he had 2 games in which he left early, so that really did hurt his fantasy points per game. He finished wide receiver 49th overall in that regard, but once again, those 2 games where he really wasn't able to play much of the game at all really hurt his stats there. He's more of a wide receiver 2 than a wide receiver 4, at least on a points per game basis. Looking at where the Chiefs were last year in pass attempts, they finished second in the entire NFL. Second. Guess what? Their defense is going to be a little bit worse this year. They lost L'Jarius Sneed to the Tennessee Titans, and he was one of the best cornerbacks this past year. That means they're going to have to pass the ball once again. And really, with the influx of weapons here, it's going to make it even more challenging to scheme against the Chiefs. That in and of itself is really going to help Hollywood Brown this year. They might not finish with the second most passing attempts this year, but they're definitely going to be up there. I project they'll reasonably be in the top 5, top 7 again. Looking at where he's going 78th overall or the 706 as the wide receiver 39. That is absolutely ridiculous. He's being drafted as a high-end wide receiver 4. He's going into the best QB situation he's ever had. Travis Kelce's declining. There's a good chance Rashee Rice is suspended. The other wide receiver that he could compete with is a first-round rookie in Xavier Worthy, who really didn't deserve to be a first-round rookie. The only reason he was a first-round rookie is because he broke the 40-yard dash record. He is good, but he's definitely not that good. He's going to be more of a threat to the defense because of his speed than he is going to be an elite wide receiver. With Hollywood Brown being only 27, just 1 year past the age apex of 26 for wide receivers, he still has plenty of career left. He just has to stay healthy. Looking at his metrics, he ran a 4.32 40-yard dash. 4.32. That is insanely fast, and he has not lost a step. Looking at his stats from this past year, they did take a tumble, but once again, he played in 12 complete games, and 2 other games he left early, and they count against him in his per-game stats, but he really only played in 12. He ranked 48th in the NFL with 51 receptions. He ranked 57th with 574 receiving yards. He ranked 60th in the NFL with 164 yards after catch. Despite only playing really in 12 games, he ranked 11th in unrealized air yards. While Josh Dobbs, the Pastronaut, was a cool story, he was a terrible quarterback. Remember, even though he was in Arizona, he did not have Kyler Murray. He was hurt before Kyler Murray came back. He is drastically underrated and is going to well exceed his wide receiver 39 price tag as a wide receiver 4. Are you kidding me? He's going to be more of a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. Snag him at the 706 every single time and enjoy winning your fantasy championship because of it. Looking at my third wide receiver for you to draft to win your 2024 fantasy championships, it's going to be Garrett Wilson. At 6 foot 183, still only being 23 years old going into his third season, we all thought he was going to be a top 5, top 6 wide receiver this past year. Unfortunately, tragedy struck and Aaron Rodgers was hurt the first game after only playing 4 snaps. It broke my heart too. He has, however, with worse than 32nd best quarterback play. Keep in mind, it's not as though Zach Wilson was the 32nd best quarterback. He was worse than that. And the other quarterbacks in which he played with were worse than he was. So he was a low-end wide receiver 2 and a high-end wide receiver 3 with worse than 32nd best quarterback play. He is going to absolutely dominate with Aaron Rodgers in town. This past year, the Jets finished 11th in total passing attempts. Honestly, they should have finished higher than this. They were just so terrified to let Zach Wilson or any of the worst quarterbacks that they had play for them throw the ball at all. It was so bad that they were just running Breece Hall into the middle where there was no room and there was nothing that was going to happen just to avoid turning the ball over on their side of the field. That is how terrible the quarterback play was this past year. Also, Nathaniel Hackett is not the best OC, but he bends to what Aaron Rodgers wants to do, and Aaron Rodgers, however, is a great offensive coordinator, and he is going to be their offensive coordinator this year. Make no mistake, title or not. Looking at where he's going as the 12th overall pick, or the 112, as the wide receiver 8. He is absolutely going to outperform his ADP as the wide receiver 8. He will be a top 5 wide receiver. Make no mistake. Who does he have to compete with? Mike Williams? He'll play 2 games and get hurt, tear another ACL or something. Malachi Corley, an undersized slot receiver, he's not taking away any targets from Garrett Wilson. Make no mistake, their second best wide receiver is running back Breece Hall. That should tell you everything you need to know. Once again, Aaron Rodgers is coming back. They are going to have an Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams type of connection. Garrett Wilson is I'd say he's one of the 3 best wide receivers in the entire NFL. He has just dealt with atrocious quarterback play, way worse than any of these other guys that have finished as high-end wide receiver 1s. If they switched places, Garrett Wilson would absolutely finish way up there. Looking at his 40-yard dash, he ran a 4.38, which is really fast, especially considering he's 6 foot 183, so he is not thin by any means. This gave him a 98.6 speed score, which is pretty good actually. Looking at his stats though, he ranked 4th in targets with 168. By the way, he is the second most targeted wide receiver in NFL history through their first 2 seasons. Nothing is going to change here. He was 4th in unrealized air yards with 992. 4th. He almost had 1,000 yards that he couldn't receive because of terrible quarterback play. That's what I'm talking about. That's how poor his quarterback situation was. Worse than 32nd in the NFL. He also finished 17th in the NFL with a 43.8% win rate versus man coverage. So he is one of the best receivers in the entire league in that regard. Draft him while you can. He is going to be a top 5 wide receiver for you in fantasy football, and he is going to win you fantasy championships in 2024. The 4th wide receiver for you to draft to win your 2024 fantasy football leagues is Amari Cooper, wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. He is 30 years old, so past the age apex of 26. He had a 50-point game this past year. What has he lost? He had 72 catches for 1,250 yards this past year, with a mixture of Joe Flacco and Deshaun Watson. This guy is still every bit as good as he ever was. I mean, 2 years ago he finished as a wide receiver 10. He also missed 2 games, or he would have been further up than wide receiver 20. This guy is going to be an absolute bargain for you. Just wait till you see where he's going. This past year, the Browns finished 5th overall in total team pass attempts. Expect not much to change this year. Nick Chubb's coming back from an injury. We'll see. I doubt he's going to be the same player. Jerome Ford isn't going to be carrying the team. Dante Foreman has injury concerns every single year. They're not going to be able to run the ball as much as they'd like to. And who is his competition? Jerry Jeudy? He's as mid as it gets at wide receiver. He is no threat here. David Njoku is a good tight end, but he is not going to do anything to Amari Cooper's target share. Amari Cooper is easily going to lead this team in total targets. Don't expect much to change from the Browns. They should hover in the top 10 for sure in total team pass attempts this next year. Looking at where he's going as the 58th overall player at the 5'10". Amari Cooper as the wide receiver 30 overall. 30. This past year he was the wide receiver 20. The year before that he was the wide receiver 10. What changed in his situation? He's being drafted as a wide receiver 3. Essentially a mid wide receiver 3. What? He was the wide receiver 20 this past year while missing 2 games, or he would have finished above that. That's such a value for you. Let's look at some metrics here. He finished with a 4.42 40-yard dash with over a 110 speed score. He also finished with a 97th percentile agility score. This guy is an elite athlete who's also an elite wide receiver who's just had middling quarterback play. That's why he's not higher up in these rankings. But as the wide receiver 30, are you serious? That just makes no sense. Let's look at some stats here. He finished 26th in the NFL with 72 receptions. He finished 10th in the NFL with 1,250 receiving yards, despite only playing in 15 games. He did finish 37th in the NFL with 271 yards after the catch, so not the best in that metric. But he finished 10th in unrealized air yards with 841. Think about that. He was 10th in unrealized air yards. He could have had over 2,000 yards if every single pass went his way. And once again, while that's unrealistic and that's never going to happen, he could definitely have less unrealized air yards and more actual receiving yards. Definitely. He finished in the top 10 in that regard. This guy is going to finish way higher than the wide receiver 30. He's going to finish as a top 20 or better wide receiver. I'd project him more in the wide receiver 15 to 18 range this season. My 5th wide receiver for you to draft to win your 2024 fantasy championships is Puka Nacua of the Los Angeles Rams. He's still only 23 years old at 6'2", 212. The 212 has actually gone down. It's been reported that he's lost weight, but guess what? He has more lean muscle, and it's been reported he has better body control. After the season he just had, he's going to be even better this year. Think about that. He finished as the wide receiver 4 as a rookie. He's still connected to Matt Stafford and Sean McVay. Cooper Kupp is coming back, but Cooper Kupp's 31 years old. And he's dealt with injuries the past 2 years. Once you get older, you don't generally tend to get healthier, so if I was a betting man, I'd bet Cooper Kupp misses some time this season. If Cooper Kupp misses any time, you saw what Puka did the first 2 weeks this past season. You can expect more of the same. The man finished with 160 targets as a rookie. That is absolutely insane. He broke the rookie reception and receiving yards record. I mean, he had a better rookie season than Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Think about that. Looking at where the Rams finished this past year, they finished 14th in total pass attempts, so just over the league average. Here's why that doesn't matter. They only throw to 2 players ever. Their top 2 wide receivers. Puka Nacua is going to be their wide receiver 1 and most targeted player, absolutely. And then Cooper Kupp's going to get the other targets. And then some go to the running back. They don't really have a good tight end. Tyler Higbee's not going to be back for a while after that injury. And especially if, and more likely when Cooper Kupp gets injured, he is going to have an otherworldly target share. He is going to be a monster, and he's going to have a better season, in my opinion, than he did this past year. Puka Nacua is going 10th overall at the 110 as the wide receiver 7. I really think he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver this year, but at worst, he's definitely not going to underperform against his ADP. 7 should be a median spot for you. He isn't the most amazing athlete, but keep in mind that he was hurt during the time of the combine, so his numbers took a hit because of that. His 4.62 speed doesn't sound great. He is definitely faster than that, and he has build up speed. Look at his long receptions this year, and look as he pulls away from 4.4 speed defenders. Even though he had a 4.62 40-yard dash, because he's 6'2", 212, he had over a 93 speed score. That's really impressive. Looking at his stats from this past year, as I said, he broke the rookie receptions and receiving yards record. He finished 8th in the NFL with 105 receptions, 4th in the NFL with 1,486 receiving yards, 5th in yards after the catch with 639. He did only finish 25th in unrealized air yards with 525, so he was reasonably high in terms of his total output, but there's wide receivers that had less unrealized air yards than him. He could have had around 2,000 receiving yards if every single pass went his way. He definitely has the potential to grow. Remember, he did this as a rookie. If he had been a highly touted prospect, he would be drafted so much higher. Oh, he wasn't drafted high, so he's not good. Is he really that good? Yes. How many receivers have broken 2 rookie records like this? None. How could he possibly be bad? He is not quite as elite as some of the elite wide receivers in the NFL, but he is really talented and in the perfect situation. Grab him at the 110 and enjoy winning your fantasy championships. Recapping my list of 5 wide receivers that will win you fantasy championships in 2024, we have Terry McLaurin, Hollywood Brown, Garrett Wilson, Amari Cooper, and Puka Nacua. Draft these guys if you can, because they are going to win you fantasy championships in 2024. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm the Fantasy Football Strategist, your NFL breaking news source and the dynasty and redraft implications behind said news. Please subscribe and check out the library of information in which I'm building for you to dominate your leagues in 2024 and beyond. Thank you and have a good day.